Today we are talking about checkpoints. And, we will also speak about, discuss about recovery models and checkpoint today. Initially, we'll discuss about checkpoints. What is checkpoint? Why do we require checkpoint? What are the types of checkpoints in SQL Server? Why actually a SQL Server database engine requires a checkpoint? We'll discuss about all these things. And no slides, only discussion. Okay. Checkpoint. Actually, when we are trying to insert a new row or update any row in the table or in a SQL Server, what SQL Server will do is that this the SQL database engine will keep all these changes in the buffer pool before writing it into the MDF or LDF log file or data file. Whenever we write or we insert some rows or update any row in SQL Server, what SQL Server database engine will do is that it will keep all these changes in the buffer pool without applying the changes directly to a database or log file. Means like LDF or MDF or to a database directly. Why? Because this is why this process will be followed by a database engine means is to improve the performance of IO, to have a better IO performance. What SQL Server will do is that before writing it into LDF or MDF, what it will do is that it will write into a buffer pool. Okay. And we have already discussed that dirty pages in our architecture session, saying that the pages that are being modified but not being written to the disk are called as dirty pages. We have discussed, right? Means like when I do some modifications, the data is stored in the form of pages. We have already discussed, right? What is happening here is when we are trying to update or insert some data, what SQL Server database engine is doing is it is not writing this data directly to the MDF or LDF, but it will keep all these changes in the buffer pool until a certain period of time, and after some certain period of time, these changes will be written to LDF or MDF later. Okay, and the pages that has been modified but not written to disk or MDF, we are calling these pages as dirty pages. We have discussed this point in our earlier session in our architecture session. Okay, SQL Server SQL database architecture session. We have discussed at this point about dirty pages. Actually, what SQL Server is doing is SQL Server database engine is using a special kind of process to write these dirty pages to log files and database files periodically. Means like whenever there are dirty pages, whenever there are dirty pages found, what SQL Server will do is this database engine will follow a special kind of process to write these dirty pages to disk. That kind of process we are calling it as checkpoint. What this checkpoint will do is whenever checkpoint runs, the log file gets truncated. We have discussed this point in our log file architecture session. And whenever a checkpoint runs, the dirty pages will be modified and uh, termed as clean pages. Turned as clean pages. Dirty page becomes clean pages. Okay. Here we have to discuss about another thing like lazy writer. Lazy writer also writes the dirty pages to turns the dirty page to clean page, but lazy writer invokes only when there is a memory trigger. Okay, but whereas checkpoint invokes if there is no memory pressure also, what checkpoint will do is with some certain time, certain period of time, periodically, this gets invoked if there is any memory pressure or not. But what this lazy writer gets invoked is when does this lazy writer gets invoked is if there is any memory pressure. Okay, at that point of time, memory manager will invoke this lazy writer. But don't get confused. Again, we are adding a lazy writer to turn the dirty page to clean page. But don't think about that. Lazy writer is invoked only in certain scenarios, but checkpoint is invoked periodically. There is no means like there is no certain point of time that checkpoint should get invoked. It will be getting invoked periodically. Means like recurringly it happens. But whereas lazy writer, it gets invoked only when there is a memory pressure. If there is any memory pressure, memory manager will tries to invoke this lazy writer, and this lazy writer will write all these dirty page to disk, and thus that dirty page will be turned to a clean page. Okay. And what SQL Server is saying that we are having four types of checkpoints. Okay, SQL Server supports four types of checkpoints. One is manual checkpoint, internal checkpoint, automatic checkpoint, direct checkpoint. Okay, we'll write this automatic checkpoint about to this internet. It will be familiar while it's- Okay, these are the four types of checkpoint that SQL Server supports, and four types of checkpoints. See, manual checkpoint means whenever we say checkpoint and execute this by pressing Ctrl F5, then it is said to be as manual checkpoint. It means like see here, connect to the instance and show. Sorry. This is manual checkpoint. Manually, we are running checkpoint, not internally or by automatic. It is not happening. There is no periodically. It is not happening. Whenever we want to run a checkpoint, we are just executing this command saying checkpoint. Okay, and here we can also say that checkpoint 10. It means like if there is any huge or bulk transaction, that huge log file that has to be truncated, which takes more than 10 seconds. It means like, for example, see, checkpoint. If I run this checkpoint, if there is any bulk transaction or huge transaction in the log file, and it takes them more than 10 seconds to truncate the log file. Okay, in that case, if I say checkpoint 10, here checkpoint will run only up to a maximum of 10 seconds. After that, it will quit. Okay, if I specify here 20, checkpoint runs only up to a maximum of 20 seconds. If I say checkpoint 30, checkpoint runs only up to a maximum of 30 seconds. If there is any transaction that needs a log file to truncate, that takes a log file to truncate more than 30 seconds also, checkpoint will be in process only up to a maximum period of 30 seconds when we write checkpoint 30. Okay, this is checkpoint. Okay, manual checkpoint. This is means like we are manually performing a checkpoint by saying a command checkpoint. Okay, this is one type of checkpoint SQL Server supports, and another checkpoint is I'm writing here. Whenever we write checkpoint in SSMS and execute, process colon manual checkpoint. Okay. And checkpoint, if we want to run checkpoint only for a fixed period of time by setting the max time to run, then we have to specify the duration to the checkpoint. Point 10, 20, 30. Is it fine? Okay. This is all about manual checkpoint. I'll coming to automatic checkpoint. Automatic checkpoint is a checkpoint that occurs at instance level. It means like if I set automatic checkpoint to run periodically after 60 seconds, means like checkpoint will be invoked on all the databases, on all the user databases, on all the databases. It is applied to all the databases in that instance. Means like after 60 seconds, whatever the databases that are in that instance, the checkpoint is applied to all the databases in that instance. For every 60 seconds, checkpoints get invoked on all the databases that are present in that specific instance. Okay. See here, I'll show you. Instance, properties, database settings. See, recovery interval 5 minutes. It means like for every 5 minutes here, for every 5 minutes, there is a checkpoint that will run at the back end. It means like at the back end of a SQL server internally. It means like not internally, we have to say at the back end. At the back end for every 5 minutes on all these databases, the checkpoint gets invoked for all the databases in this instance for every 5 minutes. We can also change this recovery interval. We are having some commands to change this recovery interval. I'll show you that also practically. Okay. And we have discussed about manual checkpoint and what is automatic checkpoint. It means like what SQL Server is saying is that what the most common checkpoint which runs as a process in the background to make sure that SQL Server database can be recovered in the time limit defined by the recovery interval server configuration option. It's like in every database without a user-defined target recovery time, the database engine generates automatic checkpoints. It means like in every server with this recovery interval, the SQL Server automatically, the database engine automatically generates a checkpoint, automatic checkpoints. It means like the frequency of generating these kinds of these kind of checkpoints depends on the recovery interval which we have specified here. The maximum time that a given server instance should recover a database during system. This is what we are mentioning here. Okay, the frequency of generating this automatic checkpoint in the background process at an instance level for all the databases we are specifying here for every 5 minutes in the same way. We can also modify this just by doing 3, okay, saying this. Or we can also modify by using some commands. I'll also show you that command. Okay. See, the database engine specifies the maximum number of log records it can process within the recovery interval. It means like when a database is using some automatic checkpoints, if the database engine reaches a maximum number of log records, the database engine issues a checkpoint on the database. Means like, what I need to say is elaboratively, it means like I'm having a log file. If there are some indications that the log file has reached, uh, not log file, sorry, I'm having buffer pool. If there are any indications that buffer pool has reached the maximum number of log records that it should it contains or it can carry, the capacity that it is having, and it reaches a maximum number of log records that it can hold. At that point of time, this automatic checkpoint gets invoked. It means like to free that to free that buffer pool. Okay, and it will also get invoked within this fixed period of time. Like we have given some specific point of time for every 5 minutes, for every 3 minutes, for every 2 minutes. At this point of time also, automatic checkpoint gets invoked. Okay, and if there is any log file gets filled, it means like we'll be writing some conditions like if log file gets filled for 70%, at that point of time also automatic checkpoint gets invoked. It means like we'll be writing one alert and we'll be creating a job saying that if my log file gets filled for up to 70%, checkpoint should get run manually. We'll write a job like that. Okay, and at this point of time the checkpoint gets invoked. That type of checkpoint is also referred to as automatic checkpoint. Here the background process, it is not like manual process. The background process, in the background, whenever a checkpoint runs in the background process, then that kind of checkpoints we are calling them as automatic checkpoints. It means like we can also modify this automatic checkpoint. See here, recovery interval. See, recovery interval is minimum 0, maximum 32767. Configure value is 3 minutes. Run value is 3 minutes. We have set it to 3 minutes just now, right? See here, I'm setting it to 5 now. Okay, see again. It was set to 5. Okay, for every 5 minutes, this checkpoint gets invoked. We can modify this duration. It means like depending upon the transaction flow that which we are having, depending upon the environment that which we are having, because it's like some environments will have used transactions within a less period of time. Some environments will not will have less transactions. Okay, depending upon the environment, we have to follow this time duration to invoke our automatic checkpoint. And checkpoints, and we have to discuss here about checkpoint. Okay, and we have discussed. See, we have discussed that whenever we are trying to insert or update any kind of some rows in our table, at that point of time, what SQL Server will do is that instead of writing all these changes directly to the MDF or LDF, it will be writing all these changes to buffer pool initially, and later it will be writing to MDF or LDF. Means like what other than that checkpoint will also do some kind of other activities. Like what it will do is that it will redo the transactions. It means like if there are any committed transactions, see, if there are any committed transactions, it will redo all these committed transactions to MDF or LDF. Okay, MDF. Okay, all these committed transactions to MDF, and what it will do is that it will roll back all the uncommitted transactions. It will roll back all the uncommitted transactions. Why it is doing all these kind of things is like to maintain data consistency. It means like to maintain data integrity. The SQL Server is using a component called checkpoint to write the transactions to buffer pool, and after that to log file or MDF, and also to write uncommitted committed transactions to roll forward and uncommitted transactions to roll back. Roll back. It means like in this case, what happens is SQL Server will guarantee the consistency for the data. It means like to maintain data consistency. And what we are calling here is that the time taken to redo and undo these transactions, we are calling this as recovery time. It's like we have discussed the recovery time interval. Here, recovery interval. The time taken to undo these transactions and commit and redo and undo these transactions, we are calling it as recovery time. And another point we have to discuss, another important point we have to discuss here is that all the information about the checkpoints will be written to the database boot page in our pages session, page concept session. We have discussed like GAM pages, GAM page, index page, IAM page. We are having a boot page. All the checkpoint information is recorded into the boot page. Why? Because the point, it means like to which point the database files are synchronized within the buffer pool when the system gets crashes or shut down. It means like suddenly there is abruptly my system got crash or shut down. At that point of time, what it will do is that in the files that are synchronized within the buffer pool, it means like up to which point of time the files are synchronized to the buffer pool, we can verify uh, by going to the database data pages. By verifying in the data pages, we can verify all this information. We can verify in the data page by verifying the database. It means like the main important reason to have a checkpoint is that whenever my system gets crashed or abruptly got shut down, all this information, it means like whenever a checkpoint runs, all this information will be stored in my log file. Okay, means like to maintain some data consistency, and whenever a checkpoint runs, log file gets truncated periodically, and it is not a burden whenever my system my instance of my system gets crashed. It is not a burden to recover all the transaction logs. It means like I'm truncating log file for every 5 minutes periodically or recurringly. I'm truncating my log file. And if I do not truncate my log file for every 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever the time I have specified, and my log file has not been truncated until 1 hour, it's like, and after 1 hour my system got crashed. It takes long time to recover to write the log file to disk. Okay, my system got crashed only within seconds. I have lost all the data. If I run all this, or if I run this checkpoint periodically, and if my system got crashed, for example, let us consider a scenario: I am running checkpoint periodically for every 5 minutes. Okay, and my it means like from 9 a.m. I have started running my checkpoint, and at 9:45 or 9:42 p.m., 9:42 a.m., my system got crashed. Okay, just 2 minutes of log file, 2 minutes of transactions are present in the log file. If I do not run my checkpoint periodically for every 5 minutes, there is 42 minutes of transactions in log. To maintain some data consistency, it means it's not a burden to truncate the log file whenever a checkpoint runs. The only to maintain some data integrity and consistency, we SQL Server is using a component called checkpoint, and in that we are having some types of checkpoints. Okay, we have discussed this manual checkpoint, automatic checkpoint, and we'll discuss internal checkpoint, which is most important checkpoint. Okay, internal checkpoint, it runs internally. It means like it is not required without any manual intervention. It runs internally. We are having some scenarios where internal checkpoint gets invoked. It means like we are not specifying that to run this kind of checkpoint. Here we are specifying in automatic checkpoint, we are specifying the time duration by specifying 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 minutes. By specifying the duration, we are allowing the checkpoint to run. But internal checkpoint, we are not doing anything. You're not specifying anything to get invoked. Checkpoint should get invoked. What SQL's, what Microsoft is saying is that whenever we perform some kind of activities, internal checkpoint gets invoked internally. If you perform some kind of activities like see, whenever we are trying to take a backup a database, log backup or something, backup a database. There are more points to write. Okay. Whenever we are trying to back up a database, at that point of time also, internal checkpoint gets invoked. And whenever we are trying to take a snapshot, at that point of time, create a snapshot. At that point of time also, checkpoint gets invoked. Internal checkpoint gets invoked. Checkpoint gets invoked. The type of checkpoint that gets invoked at that point of time is called internal checkpoint, we are saying. And when we are trying to do something like alter database commands, like alter database name, set recovery model simple, set recovery model full, set recovery model bulk log, at that point of time also, when you are trying to use some alter commands, alter database commands, at that point of time also checkpoint gets invoked internally. That type of checkpoint we are referring it to as internal checkpoint. And when we are trying to shut down, means like sometimes we'll say alter database name shut down with rollback immediate with roll with no wait. In that point of time also checkpoint gets invoked. That is internal checkpoint. And when we are trying to restart this, it means like take the database offline and online. At that point of time also internal checkpoint gets invoked. Sorry. These are some situations where internal checkpoint gets invoked. Uh, this is internal checkpoint. There is no. It means like we are not going to do anything like or generated by various components. It means like only in this. There are some certain scenarios that internal checkpoint gets invoked, but we are not trying to do anything like writing manual checkpoint or doing some settings to create automatic checkpoint likewise. Okay, whenever we perform such kind of activities, checkpoint gets invoked. Internal checkpoints get invoked automatically without knowing to us. Okay, it means like when we are trying to take a backup, what checkpoint will do is it will redo all the committed transactions and it will roll back all the uncommitted transactions. When we are trying to create a snapshot, it will do the same. When we are trying to alter a database or offline, online, or shut down, at all these point of scenarios, the internal checkpoint gets invoked. And another type of checkpoint that we have to discuss is indirect checkpoint. Written here, right? indirect checkpoint. It is at database level. It means like for every database, we can set indirect checkpoint. Like for every database, it means like we have set automatic checkpoint at instance level. For every 5 minutes, we are saying that checkpoint should get invoked by using some command sp configure and reconfigure. We are saying that type of checkpoint we are saying it as automatic checkpoint which runs at the background process. Means like this internal indirect checkpoint, it was introduced only from, we have to say, is introduced from 2012. In earlier versions of SQL Server, we are not having internal checkpoint. Why? Because why Microsoft introduced this indirect checkpoint is that automatic checkpoint we are specifying to all the databases at instance level. But if I am having some databases with many transactions, means like the transactions will be keep on repeating. The recurring transactions, we are having many transactions within a specific point of time. It means like within a given period of time, within a 5 minutes only, we are having maximum number of transactions, and my customer is having, it's a banking domain or some like finance domain where the transactions will be high. At that point of time, we are setting the time interval for all the databases at instance level to for the checkpoint to get invoked. But we are not having specific time interval for a particular database. To overcome this kind of problems, Microsoft introduced a type of checkpoint called indirect checkpoint from 2012. Okay, it means like at the database level, we perform this type of checkpoint at the database level only to that particular database. It means not like to all the databases in the instance. With respect to, we have discussed like automatic checkpoint is with respect to all the databases in the instance, but indirect checkpoint is referring only to the particular database in that instance. Okay, not to all the databases. Whenever we specify some target, it means like whenever we specify uh, to invoke an indirect checkpoint, it means like what you have to say is, I'll show you practically. See, we are in our test. Okay. The target recovery time in seconds is 60 seconds. Okay. When I specify this, it means like in automatic checkpoint, we have specified 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. If I specify there 30 seconds in automatic checkpoint, and if I specify 60 seconds here, what indirect checkpoint will do is it will override that automatic checkpoint at only for this database, not for all the database, only for this R test database. Okay. What SQL Server will do is that it will invoke checkpoint only for 60 seconds. And if the recovery time, if the checkpoint invoke time is greater than 60 seconds, it will not do. If it is less than 60 seconds, it will avoid that. There is any indirect checkpoint that is, it means like if here it is 0 seconds, then automatic checkpoint get invoked on this database also. But if I had specified some recovery time interval in seconds, target recovery time for this particular database, for this database, automatic checkpoint will be avoided here. Okay. Once the target recovery time for a given database has been selected, this will override the recovery interval specified for the server and avoid automatic checkpoint on such databases on which we have specified this indirect checkpoint. Okay, we can also issue this by using alter database target recovery. Yes, this is, if we want to modify the time duration for this, we can also be in this database. We are in the same database. If I say 100 seconds, sorry, see, okay, now series. 100 seconds. Means like for all the databases it is 60 seconds, but for my database it is 100 seconds. It means like whenever we want to invoke the checkpoint periodically with respect to our point of time, depending upon the environment or depending upon the customer and depending upon the transactions inflow in our database, we can modify the time duration to get the checkpoint invoked with respect to our databases. To have this option, Microsoft, to have this particular type of option, Microsoft introduced a type of checkpoint called indirect checkpoint uh, from the recent versions of SQL servers, that is from 2012. Okay, this is all about checkpoints. Means like indirect checkpoint is issued in the background to meet a user specified target recovery time for a given database. The default value is 1 minute. It means we have seen 60 seconds. The default value is one minute. It means like what it happens is the most important point with respect to indirect checkpoint is that it reduces the checkpoint related IO by, means like IO continually writing. It means like, see, I am having time duration of 300 seconds with respect to 300 seconds or 5 minutes with respect to automatic checkpoint, which is applicable to all the databases in that particular in that instance. If I'm not having indirect checkpoint, what it will do is for this database also the same is applicable, which is 300 seconds or 5 minutes, which we have asked the SQL Server database engine to get the checkpoint invoked for every 300 seconds or 5 minutes in our automatic checkpoint. It means when I say 1 minute here or 30 seconds or 100 seconds here, instead of 300 seconds, which we are referring to as in our automatic checkpoint, if I say 100 seconds in indirect checkpoint, what it will do is that the main advantage of this is that it will reduce the checkpoint related IO. It's like by continuously, whenever checkpoint runs, the dirty pages are turned as clean pages. Log file gets truncated. It means like instead of doing the activities for every 5 minutes or 300 seconds, by using indirect checkpoint only on the particular database, not on all the databases, only on the particular databases, for every 100 seconds only, I am truncating my log file. Okay, did you got my point?
Yes, bro.
Yeah, okay. And this is all about, sorry, indirect checkpoint. I'll also send you that some materials I'm having with respect to these checkpoints. Okay, and we will. This is all about checkpoints, and the important points that we have to discuss about checkpoints are. I will just revise once again. To recovery models now. We have discussed that whenever we do some new inserts or updates on any particular table, instead of writing all this data into LDF or MDF directly, we are, we are writing the transactions into the buffer pool, and after some point of time, after writing these transactions into the buffer pool, because all these transactions are written to a page and that pages has been not modified to the disk, and we are calling these pages are called as dirty pages, and these dirty pages are turned to a clean page by using some process in the background, by using some process called as checkpoint in the background. SQL Server database engine uses some uh, process called as checkpoint in the background to turn these dirty pages into clean page. This is the first point that which we have to remember with respect to checkpoint. Okay. And the second page is second important point we have to remember about this is that checkpoint plays a key role but to redo all the committed transactions and undo all the uncommitted transactions to maintain data consistency. These two important points are major points that plays a key role in invoking the checkpoint. Okay, and all the checkpoints information is stored at database. Whenever there is some system crash or something happens, we can verify in the database up to which point that the transactions are having the buffer pool, because whatever the information that is present in the buffer pool that has been written in the database, by using that we can verify in the database up to which point of time the buffer pool is having some transactions. And types of checkpoints: automatic checkpoint, manual checkpoint, automatic checkpoint, internal checkpoint, and indirect checkpoint. Manual checkpoint is a checkpoint that which we write checkpoint and run manually, execute that command checkpoint 10 or 20 or 30 seconds. Okay. And in automatic checkpoint is a checkpoint that gets invoked on all the databases which is present at the instance level. If we are trying to invoke a checkpoint at the if we are trying to invoke automatic checkpoint that is applicable to all the databases at in that particular instance. And internal checkpoint, we are not doing any activity to get the internal checkpoint gets invoked. Means like whenever we are doing some activities like shutdown, online, offline, backups, snap, take time to trying to create a snapshot or trying to alter the database from simple bulk log or recovery models. We are trying, I think we are not aware of, we have not discussed the recovery models. We are trying to do some activities. It means like at the server level or database level, at that point of time, internal checkpoint gets invoked, and indirect checkpoint is a checkpoint which is applicable to that particular database, not at instance level, whereas automatic checkpoint is at instance level. The same behavior is applicable only to a particular database. To avoid that automatic checkpoint, indirect checkpoint was introducing from the recent versions of SQL Server, that is from 2012. This is all about checkpoint.